This is Life Transformation Radio. Prepare to engage. Seatbelt activated. Download initiated. Your quantum journey of transformation begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Life Transformation Radio. I'm Aidan Actis, best-selling author of The Law of Action, voice actor, business mindset coach, the podcast whisperer, and Mr. Action himself. Life Transformation Radio is heard in over 90 countries. Thank you for joining us from all around the world. Whether this is your first time joining us or you've been listening to Life Transformation Radio for some time, I want to personally thank you. Today, we are celebrating an incredible day with a very special guest. It's such an important day for me and my family. I guess you could call it a birthday of sorts. It is the birthday of Life Transformation Radio 2.0. Sean Douglas started Life Transformation Radio just 3 short years ago and brought it to the incredible success it is today. And I have taken the baton and I am now carrying it into the future. Thank you, Sean. I couldn't have done this without you. And we both couldn't do it without you, the listener. I hold Life Transformation Radio very near and dear to my heart. And we together will take it, lift it up, as I humbly take the reins as we venture into this new chapter of Life Transformation Radio. Thank you. Here at Life Transformation Radio, we are committed to share more about real life, love, the power of positivity, romance, and of course, laughter. We care about helping others find their internal drive and purpose. We celebrate life's challenges and overcoming them. Please subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. We so appreciate it. Listen to us live on Mondays and Wednesdays with a special bonus episode on Thursdays, recorded live with an audience on Clubhouse. Also, a personal invitation from me to you. Please join us on Facebook in the Life Transformation Radio community. On the show, my guests are amazing people who are forces for good in the world around them and live a life of transformation. My guest today does just that. I told you I have a special guest. It's my daughter, Aidan Actis. Aidan, welcome to Life Transformation Radio.
Hey, Dad. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. I couldn't think of another person. Everybody was asking, who are you going to have on as your guest? Who are you going to have on as your guest? Well, today I have my daughter, Aidan, on. And the reason I have her is because she has led a life of transformation for many, many years since she was 14 years old. If you're familiar with my book, The Law of Action, I share my experience of what happened to our family, especially Aidan, on June 8th, 2013, when Aidan was just 14 years old. Aidan, first of all, welcome. And do you want to just take us a little bit through that story?
Yeah. Let me just start from the beginning. We had a giant day. It was, we had a mud run, if you remember. I
remember. That was great. Anytime we can play in mud, I'm down for it. You're like, hey, Dad, let's go to this mud run. I'm like, mud? Okay, I'm in. Yeah, it was an amazing day.
Yeah, it was the beginning of my summer. I was getting ready to start high school. And it was very, very hot that day. And so we decided to go on a mud run. And we got lunch afterward. And so we started going home and I just started getting a headache. And I was like, oh, just didn't drink water.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we live in Arizona. And that's one thing I could say, harped on my daughter was you have to drink a lot of water. You have to stay hydrated. So she was having a headache and she wasn't feeling very good. And we just assumed, well, you're dehydrated.
Yeah. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And it was to that point where I was sobbing and I was laying on the ground and I was basically at my mom's feet and I was just sobbing and I was like, Mom, help me. And she's like, take some ibuprofen and go to bed.
Yeah, because
And
that's what you do. I mean, here's the thing. So I'll just interject and I'll give you my experience and then you can hear Aidan's experience. And it was similar, but it's not the same. So Aidan had a headache and she's an incredible artist and she was drawing a mermaid. So she had this terrible headache. She was drawing a mermaid and her mom said, let's give you an ibuprofen and go to bed. And she was really complaining about her head. I actually went out to get more food. And
yep.
I left. And
you actually made a joke.
I did.
Saying,
I did.
How about a burger and fries?
Well, so here's why I made a joke. Because what had happened is Aidan had such a bad headache that she was throwing up. So all I know is that I'm going to go get Five Guys. Aidan's in the bathroom with her mom throwing up. And I'm like, we had Mexican food that day. She didn't drink enough water. She had heat stroke. And I'm like, hey, do you want me to get you some Five Guys and some chili fries? And, I'm laughing. And my daughter's throwing up. And look, my daughter is my world. And we joke all the time. And she was the perfect child. There was never any medical issue. Never, ever, ever. And I drove away. And I just kind of had this weird feeling. And I stopped at the intersection outside of my house and I know the phone rang and it was Aidan's mom. And she said, Rob, come quick. Something's wrong with Aidan. And I've never gotten that call because there's never been something wrong with Aidan. The only thing wrong with Aidan was that she was just being a pain in the butt. That's what was wrong with it, but not like an emergency. And I've never heard that sheer terror and panic. And I made a U-turn. I came flying up. I owned a Hummer at the time. And I came driving up. And I ran into the house. And I will never forget this. What's wrong? And Aidan was standing up. She was with her mom. And I'm like, what's wrong? And Aidan's response was, and her mouth
my entire right side of my face was drooped.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was insane.
So
what scared me the most was I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
My mom kept saying, Aidan, are you okay? Because my mom put a wet compress on the back of my neck when I was throwing up. And she's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I wasn't responding. And she's like, Aidan, are you okay? And I turned and my face was drooping. And that's when she called my dad. And she's like, we're going to the ER right now. And when we got to the car, I started drooping and sliding into a coma.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Yeah. It was sheer terror. I will never forget that. And the most incredible thing was how you get into fight or flight mode. We got in the Hummer. We drove to the ER, which was just one exit away. And they, unfortunately, didn't quite see things the way that we saw it. I'm not a medical professional. I've never known anybody have a stroke. Actually, I had a grandma had a stroke, but I didn't know any of the symptoms of a stroke. But I knew my daughter had a stroke. And I told them my daughter had a stroke. And I don't know if you remember this, Aidan, but you probably don't. But for 15 or 20 minutes, they were saying, well, has she been drinking? Is she on drugs? Is she pregnant? And I made a very big scene. I demanded that we be seen, and they just weren't taking it very seriously. Now, they got you in a room, and all of a sudden, you were responding a little bit, and then you were in a coma. And there were 20 people in the room. And I remember someone putting their arm around me and to your mom, Nikki, and they said, just go ahead and go out and you can go wait in the quiet room and we're going to do everything we can for your daughter. And we planted our feet in the ground and we said, we're not going anywhere. And they kept trying to push us away and we weren't going anywhere. We were not in the room, we were at the door. And I'm watching my daughter, who I love more than life itself. I have jumped in front of a car for Aidan. I have stood in front of a pit bull for Aidan. And then I'm watching my daughter, who is always perfect, go into a coma. And then they come up to us, and you don't know about this, Aidan, because you were in a coma. And they said, this is really bad. You need to prepare for the worst. We don't know how this is going to turn out. They did their tests, and they immediately said, you need to go into the quiet room, and we were not going. And then they told us that a helicopter is on the way and that Aidan would be life flighted to Carden Children's Hospital. And they were preparing for brain surgery. I was going to ride in the helicopter. It was about 111 degrees outside. And so the helicopter would not allow the weight because of the heat. And so Aidan's mom and I drove at 55 miles an hour, which was one of the most painful drives ever, down to the other hospital. And we got out and we stood and we waited for the helicopter to arrive with our only child, our daughter, Aidan. Do you remember any of this, Aidan, or were you unconscious at this point?
I do not remember anything from when I slipped into a coma in the Hummer to after my brain surgery. I remember when I was in a coma at Carden's, but other than that, I don't remember anything.
I'm glad. So
it's a blank.
Good. I'm glad. I'll fill you in on exactly what happened. So, you arrived in a helicopter.
Mom told me that there was what was his name? He was taking the stretcher down the hallway.
Yeah. So
it's not Jay-Z. What's his name?
I don't know.
It was some famous guy. She kept thinking she was getting punked. And she's like, this can't be happening.
Yeah. No.
That's a famous actor. This can't be happening. My daughter's a very healthy girl. This can't be happening.
Yeah, it was incredible when you were flying in the helicopter and then to see you land. It was the most surreal experience of our life. We had never been in the hospital. We had never been around healthcare in that capacity. And we had no idea that day our lives would forever change. I remember when Dr. Moss, who is a pediatric neurosurgeon, came to us, and it's another time where he said, this is really, really bad. I will do everything I can to save Aidan's life. And that's all I'm focusing on.
And he wasn't even supposed to be there.
Right. He wasn't. So he's a very, very famous, highly respected pediatric neurosurgeon. He happened to be, he wasn't even really there. He came in, he was on his way to go to an international medical conference to talk about his procedures for pediatric neurosurgery. And he just happened to be the one that they called, and he happened to just be kind enough to take the case because he wasn't supposed to be there. And he is considered to be one of the best, period. And so they told us that Aidan had about a 4% chance of survival. And they informed us that they're going to do the best they can. They will try to save her life. there's been a blood vessel that exploded in her brain, and that her recovery, that we needed to prepare that Aidan would not be the Aidan that we experienced yesterday or even this morning. And that all they were going to focus on was saving her life, but her mental capacity and everything else was secondary. All they were going to do was save her life. That was one of the most painful conversations that I've ever had. And I don't know if you probably don't remember this, Aidan, but I followed you till the very end, and you're walking in, you're in the stretcher, they're walking you back for surgery, and I'm like, I'm trying to go back there, and they wouldn't let me go, and I just stood there and I said, Aidan, you fight like a mother. And I swore, and I was serious, and it just came from my passion. I said, there are so many people that need to meet you. There are so many people who need you in their life. There are so many people that life will be better if they know you. You fight. And then they took you through the doors.
I remember that.
Well, thank you for fighting. Like, thank you. Thank you for fighting. And it was true because, I share my experience of this in my book, and it has transformed a lot of people's lives. They have been inspired and motivated to live every day like they want to be alive. And we'll fast forward through surgery. Aidan got out of surgery and she survived. And they told us that it looked like a grenade had exploded in her brain, in her skull. She had 36 staples in her skull, and it was pretty intense. She was in a coma, and
for 72 hours.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I don't know if you know about this, Aidan, but it was really one of the most painful things for your mom and I to be in, because what they said was, I don't know why they say this, but they're like, we're really sorry. This is really bad, and you need to prepare for Aidan's death. We really believe that she's going to have, now she suffered, during her surgery, she suffered 3 more strokes. So she had a stroke at our house. She had brain surgery. They removed part of her left frontal lobe, the size of a small orange. Then she's in a coma. And then during surgery, she had 3 more strokes. And they were not small strokes, they were massive strokes. And I never knew what a stroke looked like, but I saw them on MRI after you were, out of surgery. And they were large.
They were like little tiny cotton balls.
They look like incredibly bad, giant cotton balls. But yeah, they look like clouds in your brain. So what I remember is you're in your coma. And so remember, this is June 8th. Now, I don't know, do you remember any of this? Like, do you remember anything like for June 11th? Do you remember any of this stuff?
So I don't know if people know this, but when you're in a coma, it's like you can hear people, but you just can't do anything.
Yeah, we knew that.
Lay there.
Yeah, we knew that.
Lay there.
And we kept talking to you and talking to you and talking to you. Yeah, we were there. So what was it like to be there and to kind of get the realization of what was going on? You're 14 years old. What was that like?
Well, from a 14-year-old's brain, it really sucked, because all I could think of, I kept thinking, God, this ruined my summer.
That's my daughter. Wow.
But it really sucks. But I told my mom the day she picked me up on the last day of school, I really want something exciting to happen to me.
Yeah,
I totally jinxed it. I mean, like, I really jinxed myself.
Yeah, I think you did. You're more powerful than you think, daughter.
I really did.
You're more powerful than you think.
I really did jinx it. Because like few days later, something bad happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was very scary to wake up and not be able to use my right side, because remember,
no, I'm going to rewind you, but I'm going to rewind you. This is an incredible part. And this shows how truly remarkable you are and how generous you are and how loving and compassionate you are. So here we are in the hospital, and it's June 8th, 2013. We had no idea what was going on. My birthday is June 11th. Every day, they were trying to get Aidan to open her eyes. She was in a coma, but there was movement, and you were trying to get her to open her eyes. And she wouldn't do it. And on my birthday...
I'm sorry.
No. On my birthday, Aidan did something that was truly remarkable, and it has ruined every other birthday since. It has made, I mean, how do you top this birthday? So share with me what you were thinking and how this all went down, because it's something I will never forget, ever.
So on his birthday, because my dad and my mom would tell me the weather. They tell me what's happening. They would tell me who was in the room. They'd tell me what day it was, if it was night or day. They would tell me what time it was. They would go beyond extreme. But I'm kind of glad they did that to keep me in the loop. But on his birthday, I opened my eyes. So I can't top that. I can't top that for his birthday.
No. And here's the thing about that. So I'm a videographer and I make videos. And so all I knew to do was to video and record and take pictures of this whole thing. So we made a little mini documentary after Aidan's recovery. And the story is that she shared. So share exactly why you opened your eyes on June 11th and not June 10th.
I didn't have a birthday present.
Yeah. So Aidan was in a coma. She realized that she was aware they were talking about my birthday. We were talking about the days and what day it was. She was conscious enough to know it was my birthday. And she's like, I don't have a birthday present for my dad. What am I going to get him? So she didn't open her eyes on June 10th and waited till June 11th to open her eyes, which was by far one of the most incredible birthday presents in the world. Yeah. Aidan. Thank you.
Yeah. I remember Dr. Ewan asking me to hold up a peace sign while I was in a coma and me actually doing it.
Yeah. And you're being stubborn because you are, and you wouldn't open your eyes. And they thought something was even more wrong because Aidan wouldn't open her eyes, but she was waiting till my birthday to open her eyes. Yeah. She's something else. And then to top that off, in the month of June, there's Father's Day. So one of the things that they were trying to get done was open your eyes and then to talk. So Aidan had a tube down her throat to help her breathe. And then they took it out. I believe they took it out on the day of your birthday. And they were trying to get her to talk. And what's remarkable is that Aidan's recovery was incredibly fast. Like, what happened to her with her brain surgery? They removed part of her frontal lobe. She suffered 4 strokes at 14, and she was in a coma on June 9th, and June 11th, she opened her eyes. And she's conscious to know that she opened her eyes. So Father's Day was rolling around. I think that's what, June 13th? Is that when June 3rd? I said, I don't even know. But Father's Day rolled around. And so they were trying to get Aidan to say something, to talk. And so apparently, what happened, Aidan?
I said, I love you.
Aidan didn't have a Father's Day gift for me. So she waited until Father's Day to actually speak. And they're like, Aidan, say something. And the words out of her mouth were, in a very difficult way to hear because she hasn't spoken. And remember, she just suffered 4 strokes and had brain surgery and lost part of her left frontal lobe. But in a very distinct way, what did you say?
I love you.
I love you, Daddy. So that just shows who Aidan is. She is so giving and so caring and so loving. And she's gone through a lot. And not only that, but I remember a story after you did the Father's Day, she couldn't use the right side of her body. And it's amazing. So Aidan couldn't use the right side of her body. And she started making these, we were trying to talk to her and she couldn't communicate and she couldn't talk very well. We got the I love you out, but that was about it. And then she didn't talk for a while. And all of a sudden we're looking at her and she's...
I started using sign language.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we didn't know. Yeah. So she starts using sign language with her left hand and she's doing this thing with her fingers and we're going, I'm like, is this a seizure? What is that? And then I don't know if it's your mom or me, but we figured out, I'm like, oh my God, COKE. Because I used to take sign language and she wanted a Coke. So she's doing COKE, C. And then and we're like, do you want a Coke? And then she takes her fist and she moves her left fist. Like, yes, give me a freaking Coke. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, Aidan is beyond remarkable. And then not only that, so Aidan is right-handed. So we gave her a Coke and Aidan is right-handed. And here she is, sign language with her left hand. Talk about transformation and adapting. And then she got a phone. And what do 14-year-old girls like to do? Oh, I don't know, text. So she starts texting with her finger and holding the phone. Remarkable. Like,
oh, yeah. I'm now ambidextrous.
Ambidextrous?
So
there you go. That's your dad, man. I'm actually, so maybe there's another good quality you got. So Aidan recovered in a very fast way. So she was supposed to be in the hospital for a month. After 2 weeks, Aidan was walking. And then they kicked her out of the hospital and they put her into rehab. And when she got into rehab, they said she was going to be there for 90 days. She was there for 5 days. And when she was jogging in the hallway, the insurance company saw through the cameras that she was not incapacitated and they kicked her out. And I'm like, oh my God, now what? And that's the biggest fear was, well, you're going to take her home. Well, so what we did was we did massive action. We had this incredible medical team. Aidan was committed. Her mom got her there 4 different sessions every day.
4 hours a day.
4 hours a day. And because of that, Aidan has very, very little deficit. Like
and just FYI, I looked incredible because of all the exercise.
Oh, yeah.
Just FYI.
Yeah, you did. I mean, it was amazing, but she worked her tail off. She took massive inspired action. So if you don't know, a brain surgery, when you have a brain injury, you have to get into rehab immediately because the longer you wait, it just doesn't repair. And Aidan has a friend that had not even as much of a traumatic brain injury, and they didn't jump into action, sadly, and they didn't do all the rehab and everything that was involved and all the exercises and all the therapy and everything. And she probably
she gave up.
Yeah, she gave up. Aidan never gave up.
It's not that she didn't have the same regimen. She just gave up. And so she now holds her hand up by her chest, but now she had surgery. And so she had nerve surgery done. And so hopefully that'll be done and taken care of. So hopefully she'll be able to use her hand.
Yeah, so she probably had a deficit, last I saw her when she was a teenager, probably of like 30, 40% of her ability to move her body. And the one thing that I will say for you, Aidan, I don't know if you remember, but you're in rehab and she is just going full out. She's leaving nothing on the field. She has given her all. It's painful. She's crying. It's not fun. It was traumatic to have to
I hated those red balls.
Well, Aidan had no use of the entire right side of her body. She couldn't talk really well because the right side of her mouth wasn't working, and she still kept fighting through it. And the one thing that I will say for Aidan is that she inspired so many people in this rehab facility, because here's what happens, and we saw it happen. There's a point. If you give up after you've had a stroke, there's nothing they can do because your deficit massively increases. And so these are older people that are in this rehab facility, and we saw people that gave up. And when they give up, they take them out of rehab and they put them into a home, and then they just exist. And what Aidan did, by her working so hard around all these grandmas and grandpas that have had strokes, she inspired them. And there was it was either one woman or one man that was
the little man
that was giving up, and he was giving up and no one could get him to do anything. And he was going to be shipped off to a home and then just lived out the rest of his life the way that he was.
I remember him.
Aidan inspired him to start working on his rehab. And he gave up, but after being around Aidan, he didn't give up and he started to recover. And when we finally left, he was already incredibly more advanced than he was when we ever saw him. It was truly transformational. Aidan, you, and I said, people need you in their life. They need to be inspired by you. They need your energy. They need your flame. And you did that. Even if you never do that for anybody else, I want you to really get that you, because of who you were, you transformed someone's life and you gave them a life, because their life would have been crap. They wouldn't have been doing anything. And you did that.
Yeah.
So Aidan wanted to start school, and that was August 7th. So she jammed. And she started school August 3rd, 2013. So on June 8th, 2013, Aidan suffered 4 strokes, brain surgery, was in a coma, couldn't use the right side of her body, and all she wanted to do, which was her motivation, was start 9th grade. That's it.
Yep, I wanted to start with my friends.
And she did, and she couldn't talk, and she couldn't write. She could sort of talk, but it was very challenging. She had to relearn to talk. Even in her therapy, she had to relearn to take a shower, which was, that was one of your most favorite parts, wasn't it, Aidan? Learn how to take a shower.
Yeah.
Not. So Aidan started school. And, unfortunately, kids are mean. And so this is a kid who's full of life, who wants to be there. And when you have a brain injury, you stare because you're trying to process this. And it wasn't easy. So just share some of the things that happened. What was it like to go back to school and to have that deficit of having, you couldn't talk really well and you couldn't write really well? What was that like? Were people nice to you? Were people mean to you? What was that like?
Well, all teenagers are mean, but
well, not all, but there's a good percentage of teenagers that mean.
When you're in high school, mean.
Yeah, I agree.
But I went to a different district than my friends did, so I didn't know anybody.
Right.
So the kids who went into 9th grade, they've all been in junior high together and elementary school together. So everyone had their cliques and their friends. So when I went to school, I didn't have any friends. I didn't eat with anyone. I ate in the hallway, and I ate by myself, and
it was rough.
It was really rough, and I had to have a computer and a recorder to have teachers talk for their lectures, and I had to have the teachers give me their notes so I didn't have to write them because I couldn't write that well.
Right.
But kids would be mean to me saying, "Oh, you get special treatment." Yeah, I do get special treatment. You try having 4 strokes and a brain injury. I like to see you try.
Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah. And you know, the thing I'll say, Aidan, is that you kept fighting. And I really will applaud your teachers. They were incredible. They were so loving. They worked so hard to give you everything that you needed. And it was amazing. So let's fast forward. So when was it when you started to heal more? And all of a sudden you decided, well, so she went to a school because it had a 4-H program.
Yeah.
Aidan somehow was a farmer. I don't know where that came from because I am not a farmer, but Aidan.
Neither's mom.
Yeah. So either is her mom. And so what's amazing is Aidan decided that she wanted to join 4-H. And then she decided that she was going to raise a pig. Like, okay.
A pig.
Yeah.
I guess that it didn't help me heal physically. It helped me heal mentally.
Yeah.
Because it gave me responsibility for something else, and it made me happy, and it made me a part of something. And my teacher was really helpful, and he got me into FFA, and he got me into something that I really love. And I loved raising my pig, Baby Cakes.
Baby Cakes. Like okay. So I was having a conversation about the fact you raised a pig, and I couldn't think of the pig's name if my life depended on it. Baby Cakes. This pig started out, how big was this pig when it started out? She started out with
60 pounds. She ended up being 258 pounds.
Yeah, 258 pounds. And
I sold her at $28 a pound. I ended up getting $7,000 for her.
Yeah, that was amazing. Everybody rallied around Aidan. So the one thing I will say, Aidan, is that, and I hope that I'm part of this, is that no matter what happens, you get knocked down, and you've been knocked down so many times. I remember, after, even while you're raising your pig, you were bullied. I remember your junior year, and I remember your senior year, and you keep pushing forward. So, And you did it, and you graduated high school. So we had to deal with some bullies, and some serious bullies. And it was amazing because, and it's unfortunate that the schools are like this, is that Aidan came forward and said these kids were bullying her in a big way. They didn't believe her. And so I went in, and I was in the hallway, and I watched these girls bully her. And it was just unbelievable. Even to the point that they were going to beat her up, and they threatened her, and they said, "Look, we're going to punch you in the head. We're going to punch you. We're going to fight you, and we're going to punch you there because you're staring at us." Well, she was staring at them because of her brain. And that's just what happens when you have a brain injury. In order to focus and concentrate, you sometimes have to stare because your brain is processing. And now Aidan's 21, she's almost 22 years old, and her brain has remapped itself because she continues to work on that. But during that time, it's still a developing brain, and it was really injured. And so she did stare. And Aidan kept fighting and fighting and fighting, not with the girls, but fighting to just have a normal life. That's all she wanted. And the school wouldn't do anything. I finally took the girls to court, and we got an injunction against harassment against the girls. And they no longer were allowed to go to that school because we made it very clear that a blow to Aidan's head by a normal a normal kid who hadn't had brain surgery would hurt. A blow to my daughter's head has the potential to kill her. And so I presented that from a neurosurgeon and a neurologist, and the judge found in our favor. But that's a terrifying thing. I said, not only will these kids be charged with, they think, assault if they do hit her, which they threatened to do, and they actually took Aidan, they pushed her against a wall, and they did a typical school bullying thing with their cameras out, trying to bully her. But they could have killed her. And so that was rough. And then finally we got Aidan into online school because just the nonsense of just high school, we're like, you know what? You're good, Aidan. Let's get you over the finish line. And it was great personal attention. And I got to spend a ton of time with you. So that was remarkable. So Aidan graduated high school and we're so very proud of her. And then you kept going on with your life. You had relationships. Those were challenging. And then you moved with your mom to South Carolina. And then you met someone on a dock.
Yep.
So you want to just briefly share what happened? If you don't want to, it's okay. I'll go ahead.
Okay.
So
okay.
Aidan got married someone who he thought was an amazing person, and he turned out to not be an amazing person. He was very aggressive and abusive, and Aidan got out of that marriage. And it's very difficult, one, for Aidan to hold a job back then because she suffered from seizures. And work people don't like it when you call in sick. They really don't care, do they, Aidan?
No, they really don't. And when you have a seizure, you can't really call in sick a couple days
in advance,
or a day in advance. Because when you have a seizure, you have a seizure. You can't just say, oh, I think I'm going to have a seizure an hour before work. Yeah. That works.
Yeah.
And they thought that, oh, well, I think you're just faking it. Oh, okay.
So
that works.
So Aidan has been through multiple jobs and she's finding her passion. And the one thing that I will say that Aidan does is she gets knocked down, and she's been knocked down a lot. And I'm like, when does this kid get a break? Like, when does this kid a break? And so, Aidan had this experience that happened to her. Her brain injury and the seizures and the strokes and the brain surgery. I suffered a blood clot and it almost killed me. And I wasn't focusing on me because in order to take care of others, you have to take care of yourself. And I wasn't paying attention. Aidan has a thing called Leiden Factor 5. I gave it to her, so I have it. And I had a Charlie horse in my leg. And it got worse and worse and worse. And Aidan kept saying, Dad, you got a blood clot. Dad, you got a blood clot. Dad, you got a blood clot. And I didn't believe her. And I had a blood clot. And the one thing about that was that I was thinking to myself, you know what? Now I have a story to share with the world. Aidan's story is her story, and I can share her life experience, but now I had a story. And I told Aidan, I said, you know what? You need to get on stages and you need to share your story. You need to be a speaker and you need to share all the things that you've overcome because you're amazing. You need to write a book. Aidan, you need to write a book. Aidan loves to write, don't you, Aidan? You don't.
I'll just get a ghostwriter. It's okay.
Yeah, get a ghostwriter. There you go. Yeah. I wish I knew about ghostwriters. Now I wrote my book. So I told Aidan, you got to write a book and I need to get on stages and you need to inspire people and motivate people. And so Aidan says, yeah, you do that first and then I'll do it. You go do it first. And so that's what I did. So I wrote The Law of Action because I was being the dad to show her that, look, I'm laying the groundwork. This is what you do, and this is how you do this. And now that I'm the owner of Life Transformation Radio, now I have a platform that I can get Aidan on where she can share her experience and what she has done. And I am beyond thrilled to have you here today, Aidan. Now, share some things of what you do to get through life. What do you do? How do you do it? How do you keep getting back up? Now, I know loving to you and always tells you that you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, and that it's a new day. But really, how do you do it? Because you've been through a lot. How do you stay positive with all the negative that you've experienced in your life?
It's going to sound cliche, but I could not do it without my fiance. I could not do it without TJ. He is my rock. He's my ride or die. He keeps me grounded. Whenever I'm having a really bad day, he knows. He makes me feel better. He'll give me a really big hug. He'll say, it's going to be okay. There's always tomorrow. We have goals. We're going to get through this. Look in our future.
I love it. My soon-to-be son-in-law.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So it's so important to have someone who's your rock, your ride or die. I want to dig a little deeper. How do you do it? Even though he says it, what do you think? Because look what all you've been through. And do you know how inspiring you are? Because when you're going through this, people kept sending all these messages, how inspiring you are. And it doesn't register as much.
At the rehab, the inpatient rehab, I wanted to give up. I sat on that bed when the nurse came in and said, okay, at 6 a.m. and said, okay, time to get up, and took my covers and folded them up and put them at the edge of the bed and said, okay, time to get up. And I looked at my mom and I said, I can't do this anymore. And she's like, are you happy with what you got right now? Are you good? Are you done? If not, let's go. Yeah. And I think of that every day. And that's how I continue going, because I'm not happy with what I got right now. I'm not happy with who I am right now. I got goals and I have my future, and I have my career goals. I have such big goal. I have such big dreams that haven't happened yet. And I know I can get them done.
Oh, you will. You will.
So I'm not done. And that's how I keep getting up in the morning.
Well, I know you have big dreams and you truly are inspirational. I just want to thank you for being here on really the essence, the birth of Life Transformation Radio 2.0, where the Actis family have taken over.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I just love you so much, Aidan, and I am so humbled and honored and privileged that you picked me to be your dad.
Oh, I love you too, Dad.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap for Life Transformation Radio. Thank you so much for your support and taking time out of your busy and precious day to listen. We so appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me, along with my very special guest, my daughter, Aidan, to touch your heart, move your soul, and inspire you to live a life of transformation. I'm Rob Actis. Until next time.
This is Life Transformation Radio. Download complete.